At my brother's wedding, I was handed a paper badge that read, Limited Access Guest. Before I could process it, my mom appeared at my side. She leaned in and whispered, as if sharing a private joke. That means no plate. I looked from the flimsy paper in my hand to her retreating back, waiting for a smile or a wink that never came. The reality of the situation settled over me, cold and heavy. I walked to the gift table, found my plain white envelope, already a little bent at the corner, and retrieved it. Holding the $7,500 check I had worked so hard for, I said to the quiet room, I think you won't need this anymore. Then I left. My brother ran after me. My parents shouted, Come back! But I didn't. It was offensive. There is no other word for it. That envelope held a check that had taken me months of saving, extra hours at work, skipped vacations, and saying no to things I wanted, all so I could do something meaningful for my brother. And unfortunately for them, I was taking it back. I had no idea anything was wrong until I arrived at the reception. The church ceremony had been fine, a quick, pretty blur of vows and applause. My brother had barely spoken to me that morning, but I chalked it up to nerves. I didn't expect red carpet treatment. I'm not that girl. But I assumed I was part of the family. At the reception check-in, I stood behind a couple who were handed shiny, gold-trimmed badges with their names and table numbers printed in elegant calligraphy. When it was my turn, the woman behind the table didn't even look up. She simply handed me a piece of cheap, white paper with Limited Access Guest stamped in thick black text. I paused, certain it was a mistake. Then my mom appeared, as if she had been waiting for this moment. She delivered her line about the plate and walked away before I could ask a single question. I stood there, suddenly aware of a profount and quiet in my head, as if I were underwater. I walked into the hall anyway, telling myself there had been a mix-up. But as soon as I saw the seating chart and the servers placing dishes, the truth hit me. My name wasn't listed anywhere. I checked the family tables thoroughly. Nothing. No chair, no plate, not even a name card. I wasn't a guest. I was a placeholder, a loose end they hadn't bothered to tie up. I stood near the wall and watched everyone settle in. My brother raised a toast. My parents clapped. His fiancée kissed his cheek while people snapped photos. I waited for someone to notice me, to say it was all a misunderstanding. They saw me. They just didn't care. So, I made my way back to the entrance where the gift table stood. It was quiet now, dotted with a few scattered envelopes and gift bags. I spotted mine immediately, the only one not sealed with a sticker or ribbon. I picked it up, opened the flap, and took out the check. Holding it for a second, I said, not loudly, but clearly, I think you won't need this anymore. I turned and walked toward the exit. I hadn't made it 10 steps before I heard chairs scraping and someone calling my name. Then my brother's voice, louder and angrier, joined by my parents. They were all shouting now. Come back! Come back! I didn't. I walked calmly to my car, started the engine, and drove off without a second glance. They could toast and dance all they wanted, but the honeymoon they were desperate to afford had just become a little less golden. They didn't want me there. Fine. But they wouldn't get to use me either. I didn't sleep that night. Not just because I was angry, but because the events of the day kept running through my head on a perfect, painful loop burned into the inside of my eyelids. I thought about how proud I had been when I dropped off that envelope, believing I was doing something good and meaningful. I thought I was part of something. Instead, I was the girl with the paper badge, the girl who didn't get a seat, the girl whose own family decided she didn't quite belong. That wasn't an oversight. It was deliberate. By morning, the texts started. First my mom, then my dad, then my brother. Can we talk? Please don't make this a thing. Let's not ruin the weekend. No one apologized. No one admitted anything. It was all deflection, as if my reaction was the problem, not their actions. My mom actually wrote, "We assumed you'd be okay with standing since you always say you don't care about fancy stuff." as if I was supposed to be grateful for the privilege of being excluded with a smile. Around noon, my dad called. I ignored it. He called again, then sent a text. "Come over. We want to talk. Your brother's here too." I didn't answer right away. I took a shower, made breakfast, and cleaned the kitchen. I didn't owe them urgency, and I didn't owe them the benefit of the doubt. But a part of me wanted to go, not to fix anything, but to watch them squirm. They needed that check. I knew how financially stretched they were, how my brother had complained about the venue costs and affording a honeymoon. So I went out of curiosity, not forgiveness. When I pulled into the drive, my brother's car was there, along with my dad's. I walked in without knocking. All three of them were in the living room. My mom tried to look casual, smiling as if I were back from a long vacation. My dad nodded like this was going to be a reasonable discussion. My brother stood and half raised a hand, unsure whether to hug me or shake hands. I sat down and waited. My dad spoke first. He said it was unfortunate how things had gone. Not that they had made it unfortunate, just that it had happened to be so. My mom followed with talk of miscommunication and logistics. She used the word oversight repeatedly, as if my exclusion had been a spreadsheet error. My brother was vague. "I didn't know that's how it would be," he said. "I thought you'd understand." As if I were supposed to be an enlightened monk floating above the humiliation. I listened to it all, nodding occasionally. When they finished their damage control, I looked at them and said one thing. I might change my mind. The shift in the room was instant. My mom sat up straighter, her eyes wide as if I'd thrown her a life preserver. My dad exhaled sharply with relief. My brother finally looked directly at me. I could feel their hope thick in the air. My mom started talking rapidly about how generous that would be, how the money would go directly to the honeymoon. My dad chimed in about families getting through rough moments. My brother didn't say thank you, not even then. I just smiled a little, stood up, and said I needed time to think. I walked out, leaving them with the word might buzzing in their ears. I meant it exactly as it sounded. Not a no, not a yes, just a long pause. Let them sit with that. Let them stew. For the first time in a long time, they wanted something from me, and I was going to let them feel what it's like to hope for something you desperately need and don't receive. The next morning, I woke to a voicemail from my mom. Her voice was soft and careful, as if she were speaking to someone on the verge of a breakdown. She said she'd been thinking all night that maybe things had been handled a little too rigidly and that they could have communicated better. She didn't say, "We messed up," or "I'm sorry." It was just an attempt to paint the whole thing as a minor misunderstanding I had blown out of proportion. Then came the kicker. They were delaying the honeymoon, not canceling, just pushing it back. She said it like a weather delay, not admitting what I already knew. Without my check, they were screwed. Later, my dad called. He was less emotional, more calculated. He said he was proud of the woman I'd become, successful, stable, dependable. He said not everyone in the family could say the same and that I should be proud of having something to offer. Then he got to the point. "We trust your judgment. I know you'll make the right call." They were laying it on thick with fake compliments and polished concern, reminding me I was the reliable one. That was when I remembered the car. 6 months earlier, I'd loaned them my second vehicle when theirs broke down. It was supposed to be for a week or two. I never got it back. My dad had a constant stream of excuses, waiting for a part, waiting for a mechanic. I had stopped asking. The car was still in my name, still on my insurance. I scheduled a tow for Friday morning. No warning, no courtesy call. On Friday, my phone rang incessantly. It was my mom. Finally, I picked up. "There's someone outside. They're towing the car. Did you do this?" I said yes. "Why?" she asked. I told her I was changing insurance companies, which wasn't a lie. She said they needed the car, that it was inconvenient. I could hear my dad yelling in the background. "Then maybe you should borrow one, rent, or figure something out," I said. "That's what I'd have to do, right?" "This is about the wedding, isn't it?" she accused. "No," I replied. "This is about patterns." And I hung up. That evening, I got a message from my brother. "Can we talk? Just us." I stared at it. It wasn't anger I felt, nor surprise. He had stood there and let it happen. I waited 6 hours before answering. Soon. Not today. Not tonight. He could wait. Let them all live with the same silence they had once given me. I didn't respond to his follow-up message the next day. The silence from my parents was deafening. They were panicking, trying to figure out how to save face. 3 days after the car was towed, I dropped by unannounced. My dad flinched when he saw me. My mom walked out of the kitchen as if she'd been rehearsing. "I didn't know you were coming," she said. "I know," I replied, sitting down at the table. They didn't offer me coffee. A first. My dad muted the TV and launched into a speech. They had talked to Ryan. He was upset and never intended for me to feel excluded. The wedding was stressful, full of quick decisions. My mom added that they were looking at alternative honeymoon options, something smaller and more local. I asked if they'd booked anything. They said no. "I might be able to help," I said, "but I was thinking I'd put it in the form of a loan, with terms." The room froze. "What kind of terms?" my dad asked. "Monthly repayments with interest," I said. "Nothing crazy, but it's a lot of money. I think it's fair." They looked at me as if I'd spoken another language. "But it was a gift, wasn't it?" my mom stammered. "It was going to be," I said. "Then you downgraded me to a limited access guest and cut me out like I was a distant cousin you barely knew." I added, "I'd also like the family group chat shut down. I'm not reading another message about pool parties unless I'm actually treated like family." She started to protest, but I stood up. "Or," I said, "you can borrow the money elsewhere. Figure it out. If Ryan really needs it, maybe he can get a second job. Or you can sell something." I walked out before they could respond. I didn't get halfway down the driveway before Ryan pulled in. He jumped out of his car. "Wait, Mel, wait!" I stopped. He looked genuinely tired, worn out in a way I hadn't seen before. "I know they screwed up," he said. "I know I did too. But you've made your point, okay? Just don't keep doing this." I didn't say anything. I asked Dad for help. "I didn't know they were going to treat you like that. I swear I found out afterward." I asked him if he had anything to say at the reception when he saw me standing off to the side, when I walked out with the envelope. He didn't answer. "I meant the gift," I said. "Every dollar of it." He just nodded. Then I got in my car and drove away. That night, I received a message from Ryan's fiancée. "Hey, I don't know everything that happened, but I just want you to know I'm really sorry. I saw what they did, and you didn't deserve it." I read it twice. Finally, someone in that house had a working moral compass. I responded, "Thanks for saying that. I appreciate it. I really do." She replied instantly, "I just wish you'd stayed. I think everything would have played out differently." I didn't agree, but I didn't argue. I wasn't going to dump my bitterness on the one person who seemed to have a conscience. A random Thursday night, everything cracked open again. A message came from an unknown number. "Hey, I hope this isn't too weird, but I really need to tell you something. It's about the wedding and your brother. This is Carrara's cousin. I helped organize the wedding. I saw the original guest list. You were listed as family, full access, C, Ted with your parents and Ryan." Another message followed seconds later. 3 days before the wedding, your mom changed it. You were the only name that was moved. Ryan approved it. I remember thinking it felt weird, but figured it was a family thing. I'm not trying to stir drama. I just couldn't sit on it anymore. What they did wasn't okay. I'm really sorry. I stared at my phone, my heart pounding in a slow, heavy rhythm. I wasn't shocked. I was exposed. They knew. Ryan, my own brother, had seen me on the original list and let them bump me down. This wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate, pre-approved, and they did it knowing about the check I was bringing. They wanted the money, but not the connection. They didn't want me in the pictures or at the table. They just wanted the envelope. And that's when it stopped hurting. That's when it shifted, because now I knew exactly who they were, and I had proof. The next morning, I woke up calm. There was no emotional spiral, just a quiet, steady acceptance. They had chosen this. So, I started cleaning house. I deleted and left the family group chat. I blocked my parents on social media. I muted Ryan's number. I wasn't punishing them. I was removing myself from the space where they had built a version of me that only existed for their benefit. The silence that followed was a choice I had made, not a punishment I had to endure. I received a letter from my mom, handwritten and careful. She said she missed me, that family wasn't the same, that mistakes were made and things got out of hand. But still, no apology, no ownership, just a gentle rewrite of history where they were loving but overwhelmed. I folded the letter and tucked it away in a drawer to gather dust. On my birthday, I woke to no calls, no texts. I made pancakes, played music, and danced barefoot in my kitchen. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like something was missing. They thought they had frozen me out. What they didn't realize was I had already left. I booked a solo trip to a coastal town I'd never visited. I turned off my phone when I arrived. There was no social media, no emails, just the sound of ocean waves and the quiet that comes from finally, truly being alone, but not lonely. I felt light. I felt like myself again. When I returned home, the silence remained. It felt like my choice. I found an envelope from Ryan in my mailbox. It contained a note that said, "I messed up. I know I did. I didn't stop it when I should have. I was scared of making things worse, and instead I let them get worse. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed you to know. I'm sorry." There was a photo from our childhood, a happy moment from a summer barbecue before all the complications. I stared at the photo for a long time, then put it in the drawer with my mom's letter. I didn't rip it up, but I didn't call him either. Healing doesn't always mean reopening the door. Sometimes it just means locking it gently and walking away without slamming it. His fiancée texted me, "I hope someday this changes, but if it doesn't, I still think you did the right thing. I've learned more from watching you walk away than I ever did from watching them pretend." I replied, "Thank you. That means everything." And it did. I started filling my calendar with dinners with friends, yoga classes, and hikes. Not a single event involving family. It felt good. I was building a life that didn't orbit anyone else's comfort or expectations. One morning, I sat with my coffee and scrolled through old photos. I deleted most of them, keeping a few not because I missed the moments, but to remember how far I'd come. The girl in those photos was trying so hard to be loved, to be chosen, to be enough. Now, she was finally free. It had been over 2 months since the wedding. 2 months since I decided I wasn't going to let them take from me anymore. 2 months since I stopped bending myself into their shape and started choosing my own. I opened a new document on my laptop and typed a title at the top. What I will and won't accept from family. It was long, personal, and honest. It started with, "I will not accept exclusion masked as tradition," and ended with, "I will protect my peace like it's gold because it is, and anyone who wants to be in my life has to treat it like treasure, not a tool." When I finished, I printed it and taped it to the inside of my closet door, not to remind them, but to remind me. They might never change, but I already had. And the best part? I didn't need a paper badge to prove it. I had my own seat now at a table I built, where I served my own joy in portions big enough to finally feel full. And when I raised my glass, it is not to the family who failed me. It's to the girl who finally said, "Enough," and meant it. To Melissa, to me, to freedom.